Okay, I'm going to call us to order. Mr. Steppen is on his way up, but Lori Casey is excused for tonight. Cindy Perdue-Dolan. Ben Thielen will be here shortly. There he is. We'll just wait. They wanted to have a grand entrance, I think. So Ben Thielen is here, Matt Steppen is here, I am here, Dan Dennehy, Cindy Shaw, Mary McCormick, and Chad Silk is excused out ill tonight. If we can have our Pledge of Allegiance and prayer, please. All right, thanks everyone, and I hope everybody had a great holiday break, and we're back at it. So starting right off with public comment on any item on the agenda.
Already banner up 2601 Grand Avenue, Butte, Montana. For and on behalf of the Greeley Neighborhood Community Development Corporation and a triad of concerned citizens. Reference public comment on any item on the agenda. Item 8, unfinished business, Neighborhood Council's working group update. Dan Clark said that the Montana Supreme Court said, encourage and assist. I'm irritated. Maybe not quite as much as Larry was, but I am irritated that this body does not seem to be getting the message that the empty council chamber at your meetings, meeting after meeting, month after month, should be telling you something. Only 21% of respondents to your survey, not my petition, Local Government Study Commission survey, feel that their commissioners effectively represents the needs and concerns of his or her constituents. That is 79% of the people of Butte-Silver who are at least partially, and sidebar, I included the undecided because if you're not decided, you are at least partially dissatisfied. Or more are dissatisfied with the current Butte-Silver Bowl unrepresentative system of government at the neighborhood and the district level that does not accurately reflect the will of the people or include an effective mechanism by which to determine and or coalesce to bring together the will of the people. Not once in the 9 years I attended Council of Commissioner meetings regularly do I remember them ever calling for an interactive, consensus drawing, decision-making, fact-finding, listening session. The people indicated in your survey that they want a system that will require commissioners to actually listen and hear their constituents by holding regular neighborhood listening sessions with actual interactive, consensual, drawing, decision-making discussions. The people indicated in your survey that they want public body meetings where they, the people, can participate and be a part of the consensual drawing, decision-making discussions process, not only be allowed to make comments at the beginning of the meeting. I believe that this moves the creating of officially recognized neighborhood community improvement councils and a Greater Butte-Silver Bowl Community Council channel of communications with some checks and balances authority from being a one person coming up here every week and spouting off to a 79% of the people issue, and moves it from an insignificant, lesser important issue to the top of the list as the most important issue this body will address. You need to address the people's of Butte-Silver Bow's concerns and propose a representative system solution based on the Butte community situation, not on the Montana situation. What is our problem? Have you defined it? And propose solutions that we have brought before you. So what are you going to do to encourage and assist the implementation of the Greeley Area Plan of December 2010 that has been sitting on the shelf for the last 13 years? Part 3, Plan for the Future, Citizen Involvement and Access to Government. You have there the website where it is posted on the Butte-Silver Bowl web page. Our fully determined plan and that of Central Butte is there. So what are you going to do to allow us to implement that plan and for other neighborhoods to do the same? Thank you.
Any other public comment on any item on the agenda?
Sorry.
You're fine. So, members of the commission, my name is Dan Strizik. I live at 3235 Wharton Street here in town. You don't have bad hearing like I do. Anyway, I just came up tonight. I noticed on the agenda that the Superfund coordinator is now. I spoke before the commission here several weeks ago with a couple of recommendations that I thought were important. One was on the chief executive issue, the other was on Superfund. So I'm glad to hear this is there. My comment is on the record. I think Matt and Ben were the only ones that weren't here for that. I won't go back into reread that on, save some time, but I believe it's very important that that issue moves forward and it becomes before the people. And there's several proposals on how that can go, but we need to seriously look at how we move forward with the Superfund issue and how it's going to go. So I'm here for that. I'm glad to see it's on, and we'll go from there. You guys got a tough job. Hang in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comment on items on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'll move on to public comment on anything not on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the study commission.
Already Vander, 2601 Grand Avenue, Butte, Montana. For and on behalf of the Greeley Neighborhood Community Development Corporation, Inc., and a triad of concerned citizens who have discussed this. Here again, further to public participation in the decision-making process of our Butte-Silver Bowl local government. Here again, Dan Clark said that the Montana Supreme Court said to encourage and assist. Okay, have you got an extra one there? You put the wrong one. You know, it's gotta get lower. I am hoping I am irritated that 79% of the dissatisfied public indicated in your survey. I am hoping that I am also irritated to the point that you will do something about the issue that the people are so irritated about. Because here we are again. The agenda still says we, the people, are to make public comments on items on the agenda before deliberation and before we, the people, know the position of the commissioners of this body. You are fully aware that the Montana Supreme Court clearly ruled that the public has the right to participate in the discussions of the decision-making process of public bodies on agenda items before a final decision is made. You are fully aware that the current Butte-Silver Bowl local government precedent for public comment at meetings of public bodies most probably does not fulfill the intent, it may have fulfilled the law, of the ruling by the Montana Supreme Court to encourage and assist the public to participate in the decision-making process of their local government. Yet, discussions of the procedure for public comment on the agenda is still not on your agenda. A recommended procedure for public comment on items on the agenda at meetings of public bodies was presented to this body and should be discussed by this body. Whether or not this commission is going to discuss and implement the intent of the rulings of the Montana Supreme Court, or is not going to discuss the intent and are going to continue to abide by the Butte-Silver Bowl local government precedent on this issue of public participation in the decision-making process of the Butte-Silver Bowl local government is most probably going to be the most important decision that this body is going to make. Whether you discuss it or not, it is still a decision. Your decision will be sending a clear message as to whether or not this commission is listening to and hearing the public, or only listening to and hearing the current administration. This body held open houses and you would not even hold interactive consensus drawing decision-making listening sessions. Your decision as to whether or not to discuss this issue will be sending a clear message as to whether or not this body is only going to allow the public to come and make comment, or is this body going to welcome the public to come and participate? P.S. I do want to thank Shanna for posting the survey results. I got a kick out of her 11-point heading. I only went by it 3 times before I found it. Thank you kindly for your attention. And yeah, I wish I didn't have your job. I'm glad I don't have your job.
Any other public comment on things not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the study commission? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to take a moment as the chair just to address the referenced email from Dan Clark. And in his email, you all received that. He highlighted allowing the public to comment on any public matter that is not on the agenda of the meeting, and that public comment received at the meeting must be incorporated into the official minutes. We do that. He kind of gives us, he cites MCA for us, and then he gives us his own summary saying that public boards, commissions, and councils have a duty to encourage and assist public participation before taking any final action on matters of significant public interest. And here's where I want to make a point. This body has not made any final action on anything of public interest. We've been listening, we've been gathering information, we've been doing research, we have done due diligence to go out to community and participate in community to gather their thoughts and feedback. And I do not think that this is true, that we would not hold interactive consensus drawing at our listening sessions, because indeed we did. We listened to people to say, what would you prefer? How do you like these? What do you think about these issues? Are there things that you want to have added to them or not? The order of events for us is we are in the phase right now where we're still gathering information, still doing our research. We are not making decisions. I would entertain from the body, as we have time to chew on it, that when it's time for us to take our votes on what we are moving forward to the ballot, that we could have, that each ballot issue have a public comment for that issue. Our timeline, as we're going to talk about later in the agenda tonight, once we finish our report, we will go out again for another set of public listening sessions that will be interactive, and I hope in community like we did prior to this, this preliminary report being completed. And then we'll have that official public hearing, the very formal public hearing. After that public hearing, we will be taking our votes. So it would be that meeting that we can consider changing the order of operations where there's another opportunity for comment. However, I want to be very clear that I feel that this body is doing more than due diligence in regarding public comment, and that we are taking very detailed action in that regard. Dan Clark did sign off his email to us saying that for items not on the agenda, the governing body may choose to place public comment at the beginning or the end of the meeting. In practice, it is more commonly scheduled at the end rather than at the beginning. We did move our comment for public comment on items not on the agenda to the beginning of the meeting at the request of Mr. Banderrob, because sitting through the entire meeting for something to wait till that might have been a trouble for people that are sitting in the audience. So we moved that on purpose. That was purposeful action on our part. And then the last section, he gives us a Supreme Court case, the challenge of revised growth policy, reasonable opportunity for the public to participate, summary judgment in favor of the county commission proper. And in that case, the district court disagreed and granted the defendant's motion for summary judgment. On appeal, the Supreme Court affirmed, holding that the county's planning board had held several workshops, hearings, and public meetings to discuss revisions to the policy and to receive public input. The court concluded that under the facts of the case, the defendant had not violated the plaintiff's constitutional rights because it had provided a reasonable opportunity for public participation. I believe we are providing more than reasonable opportunity. It's about the scheduling in our agenda, and I don't find fault in that at this stage. I will bring it back to us. We can bring it back in January when we come forward for our final votes of what goes to the ballot. But Mr. Banderob, please, I've heard you. I believe that we are doing our work here, and I believe that we're doing it very well. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Thielen.
Madam Chair, and I don't know if this is appropriate, but I'd like to address Mr. Banderob for a moment. Ed, I can understand and respect your frustration, but I am personally offended at the way you have accused all of us here by not doing our job. Everybody up here is doing everything we can, and quite honestly, sir, if you don't like it, stay home. We've heard you, we have listened to you. Thank you very much, but I don't want to hear it no more. In the beginning, you had me, but at this point, I don't think I'm going to go for it. So thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and move us on if we could. Thank you very much. So moving into approval of minutes of the meeting held November 17th, 2025. If I could have a motion to approve those minutes. Ms. Shaw?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I read the minutes, and I think that Shanna's doing a great job of putting our minutes together. I want to thank her on the floor here for that. So with that, I would like to move to approve the minutes from November 17th, 25's meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Correspondence and our study commission update. Do we have any correspondence? I received none in my email. And then, Ms. Dolan, I know you have one, but we'll read it in the new business section. Okay. I think that works for the topic. Okay. All right, so moving on into our unfinished business, just to bring us back to the review of our timeline, really quick before we begin, our preliminary report drafting is happening now. In January, we have that we're adopting that preliminary report. And then our public listening sessions regarding that preliminary report would be in February of 26. And then March of 26 would be the public hearing to gather citizens' response to the preliminary report. And that's when we will move to moving things forward to the ballot initiatives. And that's when we would start working diligently with the county attorney's office for language for the ballot. So that said, I think this body, we could probably do some of our work in the working groups and come back in January. So we could probably recess for the last 2 weeks of December. We have coming up, right now we'd have December next week, the 8th, and then the 15th, and we could recess the 22nd and the 29th, giving the work groups time to get everything loaded into that preliminary report, coming back into January, say January 5th, and begin resuming our weekly meetings. So again, I'll put that back to us to consider. Next week, we'll bring it into us having a little vote in regards to that timeline. But really, we are coming down to the time that things are due. So I think the working groups getting their work done is more important than sitting in the horseshoe, so that we can have that report ready to go for public. So next week, I just want you to kind of mill on that. Next week, we'll bring it back for a vote on that timeline. Mr. Dennehy, did you want to add to that?
Thanks, Madam Chair. We talked a little bit, Raylette and I, this afternoon, and I thought it was important that the working groups have significant work to do on all of our issues that we have talked about. And we really have spent, Mary and I again, on 2 of our working groups with Chad and Lori, trying to filter out some of the things that we discussed in our public hearings and in our discussions around the table. So I thought that tonight we have 2 issues of another hearing from the public, from the coroner's perspectives and from the Superfund perspective. And after that, I think we're through the education process and the public process and the interview process. Now it's time to have the rubber hit the road in our working groups, where we will come to consensus in the working group to have some decisions brought back to the council, the commission, have us comment on those discussions, comment on those changes, and at the end of the day, in the new year, get ready for discussions and public hearings on what the public wants, what the public feels, what the public participation will be. But we need to have something in writing so they have a legitimate comment. So I suggested to Ray Lynn that maybe instead of coming back on Monday, maybe that Monday time frame from 5 to 7 to 5 to 8, we can work in the working groups, come in together, separate ourselves to the issue working group, and spend that 2 hours to 3 hours to formulate what we want to do, to hash out some of our discussions, to make internally in the working group something that we can provide for the entire commission, and then either give a presentation to the entire commission or a PowerPoint to the commission and have us discuss those. Then again, have the preliminary results from that discussions, yes or no, 5 versus 6 commissioners, chief executive versus city county manager, whatever those discussions are. We would bring it back, listen, and then have a format and a foundation of what we're going to do, and have that public hearing on that format from the public, listening sessions, public hearing, everything we want to do. But we got to get it done in terms of putting something on paper and have that discussion or debate or whatever we want to call it. But I would suggest that we use the rest of December to hash out in working groups what our comments are going to be, what the changes of the charter are going to be, and move forward.
Mr. Dennehy, just to clarify, so you're proposing starting that next week?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's discuss that, I suppose, right now. Ms. McCormick?
I think that's an excellent idea. I mean, we have a lot of work to do, and we don't have much time. And we have to get things down on paper. It's not just discussing anymore. It's getting things down on paper so that, you know, we have something concrete. And like I've said before, we have done incredible amounts of work researching, listening to people. We can continue to do that, and we're never going to get anywhere. It's time for us to sit down and do this really, really hard work. So I think, to me, that makes very good sense to use this time in December. You know, I spent my professional career researching, writing reports, and I loved research, but sitting down and writing it and getting it on paper is the really hard part. And we have a tight deadline. That deadline was made tight so that study commissions didn't goof around for 2 or 3 years. You know, we have a time frame to get something done. So I'm ready to, I think that's an excellent idea, and I'm ready to accept that challenge.
Ms. Dolan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Mary 100%. Thank you, Dan, and thank you for all your work in trying to get all this information together. So two points I want to make. While we have testimony tonight, we are still not done researching and getting information. We will do that at the working group level with the fire department. I just wanted to put that on the record because we need to still have some, and we've had great reception so far for the working group idea with regard to the fire department from not only the career fire department folks who want to educate us, but also a group of the 5 chiefs with regard to the volunteers. And I wanted to make that on the record as well. And I think it's extremely important that we get some input from Anaconda. We have had issues of logistical, trying to get folks here to give us more information, but we're going to follow up on that as well to get some education with regard to the idea of how Anaconda's charter in 1977 does not have the fire department in it. And so we need to learn those things and how it works and everything. So that is coming, and I just want to let folks know, if they're listening tonight, that
while we have gotten a deep dive into fire department issues, we still have more information to get through, so then we can make the best possible decisions moving forward. And secondly, with regard to unfinished business, the city county manager, the way it's listed on, and this is not anything with you, Shanna, at all, this is more to parse out with the unfinished business with the city county manager working group that also is doing the mayor question and the number of commissioners. If we could keep city county manager and mayor, those are both in the executive branch. We should keep those together. And then the council of commissioners number question is with the legislative branch. I think, the overarching question is the question, and that I've been getting from folks, is the question of the level of power and how power is distributed in Butte-Silver Bow. Right now, the power is heavy towards the executive branch. That's a fact. And the idea that the legislative branch is more of a, I hate to say it, but a rubber stamp and just listening to stuff and that's already been done. So that's kind of the argument of what we're doing. And I know, Cindy, you don't have to roll your eyes, I get it, but you might not agree with me, but I was a commissioner as well, and I really think we need to keep executive branch issues together, legislative branch issues together. We don't touch the judiciary, but we need to make sure that we're educating folks in the general public correctly. So those are my comments. Thank you.
So the question to the floor, or to the group to chew on, is if we want to recess, not, actually recessing, but doing our working group work through December, starting next week, and then reconvening maybe January 5th as a whole body, and then doing presentations from each working group, I think would be excellent. So that's the question, and I want to hear some more comments about that. Mr. Steppen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that we've recognized that time of the week and of the evening is the time we all have blocked. And I agree with what's been said, that I think we're at a point where our time is best spent there. And maybe a better question to ask is, if not, what would we prioritize on the agenda the next couple of meeting dates?
Any other comments? I would entertain a motion then, if you wanted to make that.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion that from December 8th through our Monday sessions till the 29th of December, that we would work in working groups at that Monday meeting where we sit. Instead of sitting at the entire study commission, we sit in working groups and hash out our business for the month of December. Wow, that's a... Mr. Attorney, could you probably help me there?
Just a point of order, Madam Chair and Commissioner Dennehy, are you asking to suspend the open meetings where you have the public discussion and specifically go into working groups only? No, I would highly suggest not doing that and working in your working groups outside of your meetings. This is the meeting that allows the public to participate. And by doing that and suspending that and going the way you're thinking, I do believe it would violate state open meeting laws.
So I think that the working groups can work as they choose independently of this meeting. So what the motion would be is to recess until December or January 5th. And then those working groups would have presentation. And I know that there are people that are getting public involvement, like with the fire. And I know Mr. Banderob had been asked by Mr. Silk and Mr. Dennehy to participate in that working group to kind of chew on some of the questions. So the public comment section would come when they're ready to present what their ideas are. Would that meet muster, Mr. Enruth?
Chairwoman Randall, please explain to me, how would your Monday, are you asking to recess your Monday meetings until it's all done? I don't have a definitive answer for that right now. I'll have to give you one next Monday.
Thank you. So we'll just pause on this. I think we do need to meet next Monday to hash out what we're going to be how we're going to get our work done. But I think January 5th, we need to be ready to present from those working groups. Ms. Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's important to make sure with any kind of decision with, and I agree with the county attorney, we need, we want public participation, but we keep saying this almost every single week, transparency and public involvement and participation. And while we're, chewing on these issues, it's very important. And if we can figure out a way to message that to folks to say, we're trying to get all of our ducks in a row, and then we're going to present, but, there might be some folks that want to listen in on that. I don't know what the solution is, but the county attorney, defer to him. Thank you.
Mr. Enworth?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, and the other reason I'm thinking that, recessing or suspending the meetings until the working groups are done is you have it right here on your agenda. The working groups are providing updates weekly, which then allows the public to comment on them weekly. So by suspending your weekly sessions, all of them, I do believe that you would then, not necessarily limit, but lessen the public's participation, which may then violate the law. That's why I can't give you a definitive answer on it. Now, the ability to go bi-weekly, I do think would possibly be a better solution, but I will give you a definitive answer next Monday.
I think going back to our original plan too, we were looking at the 1st, the 8th, the 15th still coming to session, and then we would recess the 22nd and the 29th, and those working groups could work those 2 Mondays if they so chose, to wrap up and be ready to present on the 5th. Ms. McCormick?
I would like to make a motion that we meet bi-weekly in the month of December, and at those bi-weekly meetings, that the agenda, besides public comment, be limited to reports by the working groups on where they're at. And that's it, so that we do not have 2 or 3 hour long meetings. We report, the public can come and hear our report. But then, in the meantime, working groups have to make a commitment to meeting with each other, whether they do it on it, they should get together and decide what time would work best for them, that they put that time in to do that work. Working groups are allowed. They're an opportunity for people to sit down and really put their heads together and think about everything that they've absorbed and discuss and just make a draft proposal. It's a draft proposal. But we're not going to get anything done if we have to have working group meetings with a lot of public participation. When they draft laws in the legislature, they don't have, the legislatures get to go in and draft their laws. They get presented and voted upon, but we don't have to have extensive public participation in our working groups. There's no point of even having a working group then. We might as well just hash things out here in front of everybody. But I think working groups are a great way for us to really be able to, I think everybody on this commission is so committed to doing a good, honest job. We have been here, we have listened to the public, we have already done tons of research on our issues of the working group that I've been in. And, the public put some trust in us to do a good job. And so a little working group drafting together something that, is going to go to the bigger group and then go to the public, I don't know how that isn't transparent. So that's my recommendation. We have bi-weekly meetings. The only things on the agenda besides public comment are working group reports, and that the working groups make a commitment to meet regularly during that time and get some substantial work done on their proposals for charter changes.
Mr. Enworth?
Point of order, Madam Chair. Commissioner Dennehy's motion was not seconded, so it is denied. And then with regards to Commissioner McCormick's motion, the bi-weekly meetings and then reporting back, I do believe would suffice under the open meeting laws.
Thank you for the point of order. I appreciate it. So your motion, Ms. McCormick, would be to have bi-weekly meetings, and in the interim, you would be the working groups would do their work. So that would give us the dates of, it would be December 1st, December 15th, and December 29th to meet in chambers.
And also that at the study commission meetings, the agenda is limited to due to reports by the working group, that we're not scheduling more people to come in and talk to us.
Okay.
You know, that part of our information gathering is over with. It's certainly, working groups should be working on their own now to gather additional information that they need to make their recommendations, but I don't think we should be doing that at commission meetings anymore.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Thielen seconds. Discussion. Ms. Dolan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree, and I agree with the working group idea and the way the work that gets done. But my only concern, and maybe it's something we put into an agenda at some point in December. The fire department is going to be our biggest, heaviest lift. I have this feeling that it's very contentious, and the idea, if we, in a working group session, have the information discussion about the Anaconda Charter, all of that, as we have with the education we've gotten from other folks in this setting, to have that at the working group level is not being transparent with the public, to let them listen to what Anaconda has to say. And so with regard to that piece of it, everything else I agree with, because we have done that due diligence. We have missed this opportunity to talk about Anaconda Fire for the public to listen to that discussion. And while I agree, it's just logistical concerns with everything that's transpired in the past year and at the end of 2024, what happened in Anaconda, our hearts went out to them, and we had to give them some space. So with that, I want to make sure we tailor this motion so we can be as transparent as we can. And I totally agree with you, Mary, with everything you said, spot on. But the pieces that we've missed with the public, I don't want to diminish down to a working group. If folks need that, come time in November 26th to vote on it. Thank you.
Mr. Steppen, did you hear from Anaconda yet?
My last correspondence with Chief Executive Everett was probably 2 weeks ago, that he was out of the country and that we would reconnect when he got back, and I have not followed up with him on that. But I can at the conclusion of this meeting.
Okay, and I think it's reasonable we could schedule that discussion on the 15th or the 29th. I think that's completely reasonable to do. Mr. Dennehy?
Madam Chair, I would agree. If we need to talk to the city, county chief executive from Anaconda, we'll put him on the agenda and have that discussion in this body in front of all the commissioners and have that publicized so our audience and the general public can come and listen to what he has to say. But I agree with Mary that we have to get some work done. And so if it does conform with the open meeting laws, Matt, that every other week we will have those meetings. The agenda will be limited to working groups, decisions, and edits, then that's what we should do. We have to get it done. And to have it done in this group, it might take us, we might not make our deadline. So I just want to get it on the record that it's important that the working groups have their time to do the due diligence. And again, whatever we do comes to this body, and whatever this body does goes to the general public for comment. That's transparency. That's how the process works.
Any other comments on the motion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. So just so that I have it clear in our notes, we will meet on the 15th and the 29th. And in the meantime, we'll have the working groups will do their work. Our agendas will be constricted to the working group updates, with the exception of Chief Executive coming in for the Fire Department working group update. Thank you for that work, folks. I appreciate you taking that time to go through how we want to proceed with this process. So that said, our city county manager working group update, mayor election, and number of commissioners. Do we have an update from that group? Ms. McCormick.
What our group did was take a copy of the charter and update it so what it would look like if we had a city manager, what it'd look like if we have a mayor, what changes we're proposing for the commission. We provided it. We did it in track changes from a Word copy of the charter, and we provided that to the county attorney to review a couple weeks ago. So that's where we're at.
Mr. Enruth, do you have any comments today?
Yes, the review of the charter that they provided has done an excellent job with regards to adding in the addition of the new form of government. Obviously, there were questions in here that haven't been decided by this body yet, such as number of commissioners, when they will be elected, if it's 2 or 3, or if it's every 2 or 3 years. They will be elected every 2 years, but if it's 4 or 6 members. I just had some more, not necessarily grammatical things, but when this body initially met, there was some of that older language in the charter, and there's a couple of those in here that are easily fixable. I did add in a couple of notes that I will provide. I will give this to Commissioner McCormick after the meeting, with questions on why a chair and vice chair was removed from the Council of Commissioners, structure. However, the powers and duties of the mayor very much have been separated from the city manager position, and essentially what it's done is taken, like it's supposed to, and given the mayor in the charter the part of the duties that the chief executive currently has, and then leaving the more administrative duties to the city manager, with the Council of Commissioners, voting by the correct number of people through a whole commission in a city manager, setting that city manager's salary. I do think we can put some additional language in there with regards to how the salary is determined, and possibly additional language with regards to qualifications for a city manager, rather than just the simple term of a qualified individual. We could possibly detail out what qualifications actually are, such as specific college degree, when you look at a job type description. A lot of I do believe that the way they split up the duties between the mayor and the city manager was done correctly. They correctly, put in, how you would fill any of these vacancies if any one of them were to leave, or if the city manager were to step aside or be required to step aside. There was a question in here with regards, if the city manager was to step aside or had to leave due to illness or family matter, that the mayor or the manager shall designate the subject to designate who would take their place, subject to the Council of Commissioners. We could also change that a little bit if we wanted to, but other than that, it looked very well done, and I've just got a few notes on it for them to look at their next meeting.
Questions or other comments? I have a quick question, Mr. Enruth. I think we've talked about that 3 questions that are changes to form of government. Is there more than 3 questions for a ballot in what you have there, do you think?
It is if you split them up. So that's where we're going to go back and we're going to look at those emails, and then what we'll call a semi-legal opinion from MACO that I just kind of randomly found, where they took 3 questions and combined it into one, such as with the Council of Commissioners, the question would be, rather than 3 separate questions of this many Council of Commissioners, this many term, or this many years elected this way, you combine it into one question. So it would be X amount of county commissioners, elected for 4-year terms based on this schedule. That qualifies, in my opinion, as one question. And then obviously we do have to present these to the Secretary of State to make sure that they agree as well. But then that way we can take all the little issues inside the County of Commissioners issue and make that one question, with changing the charter. Same with the City Mayor Forum. And then the third one still sounds to me like it's going to be the firefighter issue. But yes, I think we can get it into 3 questions.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Dennehy?
Madam Chair, we will get together probably next Monday in our group that have what Matt was talking about. We left that pretty blank in terms of how many commissioners for, or city county commissioners, 4 or 6. We will provide a number, and that will be what the entire commission will make a decision on. We also said that the mayor is a voting member of the commission versus a non-voting member. So that's what the commission will have to make a decision on. So those are the things that we're talking about in our work group that has to be discussed here and have a decision made by this commission as a whole. So that's what we're kind of talking about here. But thanks, Matt, for looking at that. And I'm sure there's some other issues here, but I think we did okay. So thank you.
Mr. Thielen?
Yeah, I just have a question for Matt. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just so I got it kind of straight. So we can put 3 per se into one question. What about the change on language in the charter? Is that separate?
Chairwoman Brandel, Commissioner Thielen, it depends on the language that you're changing. So if we're doing, the simple language changes, those are fine. It's what you are limited to is the 3 questions with regards to the form of government. So that's your commissioners, your chief executives, your mayor form. Yes.
Okay, any more discussion on that working group's update? Okay, so fire department working group update? Ms. Dolan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just as in addition to what I said earlier with regard to fire, so thank you. I think Dan's idea of meshing that in with the current schedule and updating would be great. So thank you, Dan, for that. Because Chad's not here, we had asked to get that list of equipment from Chief Osborne. So we don't have that yet, but I can reach back out to Chad and see where he's at with that. And then I know there's been some discussion with regard, and we'll chew on this, I'm sure, a lot, there was discussion last week with taking just the volunteers out of the charter, but again, to reiterate, with regard to Anaconda, they're completely out of the charter. So I think those are 2 big discussions that we'll probably have and chew on, and I just wanted to get that on the record as well. Thanks, that's all.
Mr. Thielen or Mr. Steppen, anything to add? Oh, sorry, Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Cindy, for that. I also believe that Chief Osborne was going to provide us with some information on ownership of property, not just the equipment, but the ownership of the property, the land, the buildings, and that will be interesting to find out. Yeah, I think we need to do, it's going to be a big one. This is going to be a very important and detailed discussion. I also agree that if we do have speakers, they should be up in I believe the public should be able to hear speakers. But other than that, I think that we've got to concentrate on getting this down on paper. And the more input we have, not against any transparency or public input, but it's just a necessary thing that we have to do. And yeah, I do believe that it's very important that these working groups have an opportunity to just put their heads together and get the work done. And it'll always be a public, the document, whatever we put down on paper is going to be public in every way. So I think that that's going to work out. Thanks.
I just received a text from Chad Silk that he will get the equipment list and the ownership list to everyone tomorrow. Okay, any other discussion on fire? All right, how about neighborhood council working group? Mr.
Madam
Denny?
Chair, Chad have sent us, Mary and I, a message today. He's working on a survey regarding neighborhood council working groups as they pertain to other Class 1 cities in Montana. He has provided that survey. We are reviewing that survey. I think it's fairly well done. I don't know where he got it. He did a really good job. Not saying he didn't do it himself, but it was very professionally done. And thanks, Chad. I know you're listening. It was good. So that's going to go out. I also have list a number of city managers and liaisons for city councils that we will be talking to during our decision-making meetings to ask them their impressions of how that works and how it's working from them in a historical form. So we are moving forward with Chad's effort and with Mary's efforts. Mary has provided all of us with handouts and attachments of all the city charters of Class 1 cities in Montana in terms of what their charter talks about in terms of neighborhood councils. And I believe Spokane's in that too, isn't it? Yeah, Spokane is also yeah, so there's 2 other cities not in Montana that are working through neighborhood council, so we'll be gleaming that information and coming out with some of our decisions. And I know Chad sent something to Mr. Van Rob today, so I didn't get all of that information, but I think that went out to him today.
Questions? All right, excellent. Thank you all for taking these on and doing this work to get the report ready and getting that analysis chart done and bringing in all the information. And I'm sure we'll have more questions as we get moving along, but I appreciate your efforts. They're very much needed, and I appreciate the urgency with which we're getting our work done. Moving on to our party line, I apologize to my colleagues that we were not actually scheduled for party line on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I believe that's called Friendsgiving, right? We had way too many people there for that day, so we rescheduled to December 17th, and so we will be on December 17th. And I will make sure that we get that last Wednesday spot reserved. That was just a miscommunication between myself and KBOW. Moving on to new business, we have our coroner discussion. We have Mr. Haggerty and Mr. Parrish here to talk tonight. So Mr. Haggerty, I'll invite you to come up and give your discussion with us. And Ms. Dolan, I know, has questions to lead that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to introduce Mr. Dan Haggerty. He is currently Jefferson County Commissioner, but has worked as in his former job, in former life, he was a sheriff/coroner in Jefferson County. So I thought it would be interesting to learn a little bit about his job and what that entails, having a combination job. And Dan is been so gracious with his time with us tonight to give his expertise on that. And I will make the caveat that, and it's not our purview, and like I said in an earlier email today, that we don't have budgetary discussions or information with regard to budgets. So anything other than budgetary questions, I'm sure Mr. Haggerty would be happy to answer. So thank you again, Dan, for coming tonight, and floor's yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the commission. As Cindy said, I'm Dan Haggerty. Started back, I've been in law enforcement, or was in law enforcement, now retired 37 years, 24 years as a deputy coroner, and also Air Force time in law enforcement. So to start with that, I started out in Moore County as a coroner, and then continued on in Jefferson County where I retired. And at that point, I've seen almost anything and everything, from the fatalities to hospice, all the way to deaths inside the home, accidental, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess what I would do is I would open it to the questions that you have, so maybe I can expound on that.
Thank you. Ms. Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess right out of the gate, Dan, the reason why we're doing this in Butte-Silver Bow, obviously looking at our entire charter, but could you give us some sense of the difference between, or your experience with just being, a sheriff versus adding the coroner responsibilities, the pros and cons of that, and what your estimation is, as well as a follow-up to that overarching question, to more specific, whether or not a coroner office should be autonomous, and what are the pros and cons of that autonomy? That's a loaded, very huge question, but in the kind of 2 parts. Thanks.
Okay, first of all, I would start with, as law enforcement, when you go in, always make sure the scene is secure, or not secure, rather, but make sure everything is good to go. Then secure the scene, as a law enforcement officer would do, because you don't know all the parties involved. And then, depending on the circumstances, whether it be criminal or any other, depending, again, what it might be, go in, and if that then prevails, then you will become the coroner. You are the coroner. You are the first one in charge, and you do not release that body until you tell everyone else that they're allowed to do so, to include your other counterparts of law enforcement, or EMS, or fire, or anything else, which then allows you to, if you need actual help, I mean, you can then determine within a degree, because of all the training for my 24 years, it gives you a good idea if it's possibly a criminal case, or suicide, or homicide. And then if it's above your bearing at that time, that's when you would call the detectives, but at least you have a good idea. You need to secure this scene and make sure no one goes around it whatsoever. You, at that point, are responsible for that body, period. You are the only one. And then as you go on in doing this, you should be, if you can, at that point, draw fluids, which are we call toxicology, which includes vitreous fluid. For those that don't know, that's the eye, urine, not urinal, and then also femur, out of the femoral as for your blood. Those are usually sent to the lab, crime lab, and then they're analyzed. But at that time, if you cannot still secure the scene, and then you've made the arrangements, you've done everything you can, you contact the mortuary or the mortician, whoever that might be in charge, and then they'll come, and then you and them remove the body, nobody else. And then you immediately follow it, because in a sense, it's evidence. You follow it to the mortuary, where then, if you have to, you can then draw the fluids. And then make a determination there. And if you have any questions, the one point in contact would be your sheriff. He is your coroner. He represents that sheriff's office or entity, and you are a deputy coroner. So he is solely responsible to have to answer to any and everything, so to speak. So did I add enough to that, or you need a little more on that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, that's great. Could you answer the follow-up question, which is, what is your personal opinion, and we're asking for your opinion, with regard to having a sheriff/coroner versus an autonomous coroner's office? What is your sense on that?
My sense, honestly, it makes you better, pardon the expression, a better cop. You know what to look for. You learn all about rigor mortis, anything and everything that sets into the body, possible foul play. There's a lot that you learn that I didn't know as a deputy, just going in there with your eyes blind and, pardon the expression, just a badge and gun. You are an investigator at that point. And it tells those a lot different. As a matter of fact, I was an EMT. So when I would go in there, just like you would an EMT, check for a pulse, et cetera, if rigor mortis set in or whatever, you have an idea of what you're dealing with and where you're going with. And at the same time, based on the scene, is that body in the location you find it, is it in that right position of where it should have been? Or is somebody moved it, or foul play? Therefore, that's why I say secure the scene or with a body. Whereas if you have to wait for someone else, or, excuse me, my mouth's getting dry, and then law enforcement shows up, well, at the same time, that doesn't mean, is that whole place secure? You don't have time to go run around the house and stuff. You've got to stay with that body. So in my opinion, yes, it makes sense to be law enforcement and coroner, deputy coroner. You'll learn a lot more, believe me. So it helps for the cases. It's pretty much not cut and dried. There's questions about some, but if we always have a question, we always sent the body off to the crime lab, which went to Missoula in this case. And then they would come back with a determination, besides what fluids we sent them, or if they draw them, and then based on that, they can tell us more. I'll give you an example of one. I was telling Cindy, I had an incident where a gentleman, it was backward, and he had a roommate. Honest to God, I thought that he pushed him over backwards, and his head, due to blunt force trauma, killed him. Well, after my investigation, I called the sheriff, told him what I had. I ended up calling one of the morticians over here. He came and got the body. We then immediately, the same day, took it over to Missoula. Well, come to find out, which I would have never known, he actually ended up, what was it? I think he was diabetic, and he was convulsing and stuff, and fell over backwards and hit his head. But to me, it looked like something else. So, there's some determination there, but at least you're allowing that person, that officer in this case, to have to think about what's going on, instead of saying, oh, I'm not worried about it, coroner's gonna come, it's not my problem. There's more to it than that, honestly. Because then you can determine possibly the time of death, possibly cause of death, and what was all involved, whether it's blunt force trauma, et cetera, or whatever the case might be. So, does that help anybody?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have one more question with regard to because, you know, we're just gathering info with regard to this idea, but if the coroner's office were to stay autonomous, what would your opinion be and suggestion of qualifications, going back to the county attorney's, you know, the idea of qualifications for jobs in Butte? We don't have many qualifications in Butte. Basically, you know, some of the jobs here, I don't know a lot, but some of the jobs here, you just need to be 18 years old and have a pulse. So I'm hoping that you can give me some what your thoughts are with regard to what qualifications should a coroner have in a small rural county in Montana. Thanks, Dan.
Well, I would say every police officer I know has gone, post-certified, has gone to the police academy. Therefore, they've had the background check, everything else done. I mean, that would sort of eliminate that. But at the same time, it would put them with more responsibility, not saying that within our department, not everybody was a coroner. Some can't really deal with it. Or those that it was closer to home would ask, hey, you as a coroner, can you deal with it? Because maybe it was a closer family member as such. But to me, like I say, it made a better officer because you were right there and you had to make that determination. And if you didn't know, I mean, there's always the phone. You can call the sheriff in this case. So, does that help? Okay.
I'll start with Mr. Thielen, and then I'll take you, Ms. Shaw. Mr. Thielen?
Madam Chair, thank you. Dan, so back to her question about experience.
Yeah.
So somebody that's had prior experience that's worked under another coroner, would you say that that would suffice?
Repeat it again, Ben, please.
So if somebody worked under the previous coroner here, for example, and they have the experience dealing with that, would that experience suffice, would you think?
No. It depends on the experience in the terms of how many years. Are they, in other words, are they brand new to it? Or have they been around for a while and they understand how that works so that they can, you know, teach the others? And I don't know if you guys know it, you also have to go to the academy the police academy offers this. Basic is once a year, you go in December, then advanced is 2 years thereafter. So it's continual education all the time. So I guess to answer your question on the basis, I guess it would depend on the experience of that person in its sense, as opposed to sending sort of like new recruits into the field and getting them to get trained and stuff. Does that answer your question?
Ms. Shaw?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dan, for being here. Quite interesting. I you answered part of my question about continuing education. So if a person elected, which they are, we've elected our coroners, you know, for a long time. I assume, now maybe I'm assuming something, which you know what that means, but I assume that there is a continuing education opportunity or even a mandate by the state for a coroner to go to this continuing education, not because they're with law enforcement, but just that in general?
You are
kind of
correct.
like we do that with the treasurer and other people that are elected.
You're correct.
Okay. Could you give me a little bit about, if you know, how that works for
How it
an
works,
elected
you mean
official?
For going to the,
Yeah.
okay. How it works, like I say, like in December, it comes up every year. They go through, they learn all the basics, you see pictures, the whole 9 yards, some of the stuff, what to look for. They talk about particular items like petechia, which is lack of oxygen in the eyes, and then the red, and other things. And again, how body works when rigor mortis sets in, how long. So that's all the basics. So they talk about all that. When you come out, I'm going to be honest, it's like, what did I learn? Once you start getting into the advanced and get your hands on, you start learning a lot more. They start covering, as a matter of fact, some of them are homicides that they show pictures about from other departments, or pictures that might have come from your particular department that had an interest to them so that they could teach the whole class. It just depends on what it is, but it broadens the whole horizon then in the terms of being a coroner and what more sort of look for instead of just walking in and going, oh, this person's deceased. But how do you know that person's deceased? There's many numerous ways to go through it once you go to the advanced level. So you're not going to learn it the first year, but it comes with education and then again, hands-on. So does that answer your question?
Follow up. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dan. So just in your opinion, like we were saying,
Yes,
we
ma'am.
appreciate your being here, and, you know, we don't really have any knowledge on our own, any institutional knowledge ourselves. But are you saying that a person that's elected that has to go through continuing education is in a more, let's say, they're not as well educated as if they go through law enforcement? I'm thinking that they're two different things.
I would say no. I mean, all I'm saying is they're more, they wouldn't be as versed in law enforcement, what to look for, scenes or the crime scene or anything else. Their duties would be to go in and say, okay, here's the body. What am I going to do with it? How is it that what do I need to do, basically? And then remove the body. Whereas with law enforcement going in, you spend more time with that body. And me, I look at the position of the body, and due to what the nature of the death might be, is it in the right position? And I don't know, I can't speak for others in the sense of the civil side of it, but I don't know if they even do that. Because I know they have a job to do, but and I'm thinking that they go in and yes, their duties are to remove the body and take it to the mortuary and stuff after they have the authority to release it, as opposed to law enforcement being there, that if they had the authority, and no disrespect to these gentlemen at all, but at least you know that you've looked at it and evaluated possibly, is it a crime scene or isn't it, before you release that body.
Okay.
So I guess that would be the more part of the advertisement for law enforcement. They should have a better idea of what to look for due to a crime scene, as opposed to the civilian, so to speak.
One last, thanks.
And then I'll take Mr. Steppen. So Ms. Shaw, follow up.
Yep, thank you. So just in conclusion here with my questions, so a coroner is always going to be involved with law enforcement, you know, in just extraneously, just at the scene and everything else. So you still think that being in, you know, under the, well, you wouldn't be elected, you'd be an employee of the Sheriff's Department. You think that that's a better deal than being separate, as
I
far
do,
as that goes?
because then you got the sheriff's insight in on it, and then again, you're going to pull in a county attorney if there's something that doesn't look right, as opposed to the coroner coming out and dealing with it. Law enforcement has, they're supposed to have more training is what I'm saying. I'm not doubting, but I mean, I understand their job and I respect that at the same time, but I feel that law enforcement, you learn a lot more, and that's continuing education at the same time too, always.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
Mr. Steppen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. My question is there any value in having those duties separated from a conflict of interest standpoint? Or let's say, you know, if the death involved a member of the Sheriff's Department, do you seek an outside agency at that point? Or is there value in keeping those functions separate?
Give you an example, and that was, I used to work with the previous coroner a long time ago, because I'm the station out of Whitehall. And we had an incident where if it involved law enforcement, in this case, there were suspicious circumstances. The deputy got out to check this individual. The individual jumped out on the interstate and got run over. We, as the coroner at that point in that sheriff's office, cannot do the investigation. We have to have any adjoining county that can do the investigation, because that way it's impartial. And then they can make a determination, and then it's just like the same thing. Then you go through the crime scene and follow through with over there in Missoula and send them over. It's just that we can't touch the body. We are impartial to that. So for that part, and what was your other part of the question, sir?
I think that answered my question, using an outside agency. But to clarify, are you removing yourself from the coroner duties or the investigative duties at that point?
From the whole thing at that point. And then if that had to do with it, possibly, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the CSI criminal investigations, I can't remember, out of Helena, Attorney General's office. They could possibly get involved, but it would leave us out of it because of the cause of death, instead of saying, hey, we're going to point the finger at the sheriff's office because you know there's a civil suit that's going to be coming down the road. And that's what happened with us. But at the same time, with an impartial entity, they would make the determination, the cause of death. So we would have nothing to do with it, no matter what. But we would be going through an interview And I don't know if you guys are familiar with what they call a coroner's inquest. If there's hesitancy or something that comes up, it would be just like you have here, and then you have, like Madam Chair here. Then they come up and they ask questions of the ones all involved. And then there'll be a coroner that's usually up there from another county. They'll be asking questions, and they'll make a determination at that point whether or not this is going to be criminal, and that would be forwarded over to the attorney or county attorney. But that is if there's any question of foul play or anything else. Does that answer that question?
All right. Ms. Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one comment, and again, Dan, thank you so much for your time tonight. The reason we're talking about this, and you referred to it in your county when you were sheriff coroner, it was a lawsuit in Butte-Silver Bow. And the chance that we now have as a study commission, thanks to the voters of Butte, to look at our charter and to figure out how to correct any, we're not here to correct mistakes, but we're here to help and move. And I always like Commissioner Silk's idea of this body setting us up for success. And I think that, if we can help the coroner's office, the sheriff's department in Butte-Silver Bow be better and have the tools they need and set them up for success, and even if we have to work from failure with these chain of custody issues, having a deputy on 24/7 that are on shift, morning shift, afternoon shift, graveyard shift. They're constantly in rotation and could be deputized. So those trying to help that setup. But then again, I really appreciate your time tonight to give us a sense of what these different ideas look like and from your experience. So thank you so much, and I really appreciate your time tonight and coming here to Butte. Thank you.
Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And that brings up a question that I have. We have a sheriff's department, of course, that combined city county together back in the 70s, as you probably know. I think that we should have somebody from the sheriff's department to come in and discuss what they think about a combination. Well, I meant Butte-Silver Bow. Somebody from Butte-Silver Bow's sheriff's department to talk about what it would be like to combine or to put the coroner underneath the sheriff. Did I say something wrong?
I think I recall Mr. Lester giving that testimony when we interviewed him to begin with. He talked about.
I believe I probably missed that meeting.
Yeah,
Okay,
maybe
all right.
go back to those notes, and then if that isn't
Okay.
satisfying, we can certainly have him
Yeah,
come back.
Absolutely. Okay, that was my only question. And obviously, your sheriff's department embraced the idea of having the coroner, under their jurisdiction. So, okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, could I add something to that? One thing I found out is being a coroner after that many years, usually that's when those folks are in need of time or in need of help, and they don't know where they're turning or what to do. I've interacted with so many in different ways, whether it be they've lost their child or even their loved one, whoever that might be. But it gave me an opportunity to talk to them, and they got to see us in uniform from a different light. Instead of always going to the house due to a domestic or everything else, or get arrested or charged or whatever the case may be. And it was a humbling experience when you came out. Yes, they asked the questions. It was hard, but you'd answer the questions. I mean, the one they always asked was it sudden? And I'm going, yes, but they're always going to ask that question, but they were so humble. But at that point in time, they were reaching out to you, and they got to see law enforcement in a different perspective that you care. Whereas, you go in as a law enforcement, and first thing you do, okay, what's going on, and break things up, or whatever the case may be. They see a different-hearted person. So that's me, okay? But I hope that sums it up, so.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Mr. Parrish.
Always an IT guy. It never fails. I've tried to give it up, but it just keeps coming back. Madam Chair, members of the Study Commission, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here tonight and address this commission. I guess I'm going to be speaking on the other side of the aisle. I am a civilian coroner. That does not mean that I've not served in different formats. I have been an EMT and a paramedic in the past, working in large urban environments, and I have attended multiple deaths as an emergency medical technician, paramedic, etc. I've also had military experience where I've worked on some scenes that most people can't fathom. According to, excuse me, sinuses. According to Montana Code Annotated, and that's where we all have to look, the entire duty of a coroner is to determine the cause of death and the manner of death. The cause of death is the actual mechanism of injury that leads to the terminal event. Manner of death is whether or not it is a suicide, homicide, natural death, accidental, or in some cases where the death is undetermined. The training that is required of us is the same as what a law enforcement personnel would be required for the coroner side of it. It is 40 hours initially and 16 hours every 2 years continuing education credits. Post-training, which is what the law enforcement must go through, is a wonderful training, but I do not believe it gives an overt advantage over a civilian coroner, provided the mentality is built into the coroner's department that we're not here just to pick up the body, because that is not it. As we go through our scenes, and this is something I have been instructed through by Dan Hollis prior, and from other individuals through training in the Mortuary Sciences Academy with the military, what we have to do is to take in the entire scene. Not unlike law enforcement looking for evidence, not unlike a detective trying to eke out each and every clue. We do not just look at the body, we look at the entire environment. We process a scene cautiously, we process it carefully, and we process it thoughtfully. Each step is inclusive. We do not leave anything unturned. Every medication bottle, every little piece of paperwork that we find that might provide more instructions as to what had happened, more evidence as to what the case may have been prior to the immediate termination of life. As we are called to scenes, we do not work against law enforcement, we work with. Each officer, if you'd ever been on scene with them, they have a dead body form. It is an individual found deceased, and each one has a set of questionnaires. It discusses rigor, it discusses lividity, it discusses other signs of foul play, to include, as Mr. Haggerty pointed out, petechia or tache noire or any other sign that indicates the time of death, cause of death, manner of death. So, in working with our law enforcement, they have been gracious, they've worked with us very well. They do not touch a corpse until we are on scene, and then together we process it. And in that case, we are able to throw ideas off of each other as we find evidence that might suggest foul play, that might suggest, immediate cause, if there were other factors involved. We also work with the EMS, say for carbon monoxide. We'll have fire rescue there on site. The process is very logical. As 911 receives a call, they dispatch out EMS rescue, generally for a welfare check. They'll send law enforcement right away. Once it is determined that a person is devoid of signs of life, they will contact the coroner's office immediately. It's generally myself or one of my deputies who are on at various times that will respond within 10 minutes. So there's no waiting an egregious amount of time for one of us to show up on scene. And then, once we have processed the scene with law enforcement and under the auspices of proper scene detection and scene security, we will assist in maintaining the chain of custody of any evidence any personal property, and of course the body itself, which is itself evidence towards cause and manner of death. We will follow the funeral home once we call them. We'll assist them in loading the deceased into their vehicle. We'll follow them into the funeral home. We'll draw talks where it is appropriate. We'll do any other investigation where we have additional lighting. Occasionally, yes, we will have to do cut-down procedures just to make sure we have exactly what we're looking for in terms of toxicological, biological specimens. Does that mean that we're better? Does that mean that being a law enforcement officer first is better? No. What it means is if you are in coroner mindset, you are looking for exactly the same stuff in a different light. If you are a law enforcement officer, you're looking at it from a law enforcement standpoint first, and then a medico-legal death investigator standpoint. It is a matter of perspective. It is a matter of framework. It is not a matter of who is better or otherwise. It is a matter of your experience and your education and your perception. Mistakes can be made by either side. Let's not forget about that. We are human. We are all human. Within this range, we do not just rely on the 40 hours and the 16 hours mandated. We provide new coroners coming in, new deputies, with a field training officer, and they fly with us on each scene until we are confident that they know what to look for. It is not a take your course and jump in the car and go. We make sure that they're going to handle it, because let's face it, some of those scenes can be a little less than awe-inspiring. But we also make sure that they are asking the right questions. They are looking for the right things. They know the procedures, and they treat the people and the decedents with respect and empathy. We make sure that they have a good rapport with law enforcement, from your newest training officer all the way up to Sheriff Ed Lester and all the detectives. We make sure that we maintain that line of communication so that we can throw ideas back and forth to finally ascertain the appropriate cause. As far as the advantage that I see of being a civilian law or a civilian medical legal death investigator versus being law enforcement adjacent, is that we do maintain a more unbiased view as we may proceed into a death that is in custody or in incarceration or in the process of being placed in custody. It allows us to remove ourselves from the law enforcement perspective, look at it more obliquely, and have a more humane view a more unbiased view that's not going to be tainted by, well, this is standard procedure versus whatever the case may be. Then we can go back and discuss it with other folks in the medical legal community, including officers who are not attached to that investigation, because that would be conflict of interest. In the state of Montana, through the Department of Justice, in the Forensic Sciences Division, we have an amazing person. They are a coroner liaison to the Department of Justice. In this case, it's Kayla Wallace. We are able to contact her. She has literally thousands of cases under her belt. She is able to provide us with great information, very solid foundations, and if we need, she can come on scene and assist us if there is a biased portion, or if there is anything that may be questionable. Beyond that, we can reach out to Dr. Willie Kemp or Dr. Siobhan, who are the medical examiners in Montana, both in Missoula and of course over in Billings. And they are reachable 24 hours, 7 days a week. And they too have gone through considerable training, obviously being a medical doctor first and a pathologist and medical examiner, board certified. We are not without our resources. We are not without a clue. We do provide a very valuable service in this county, and I do believe that there is a solid reason for us to maintain it independent from law enforcement. There are advantages if we were to go together. One would be budgetary and having a little more cooperation in certain cases. However, as it currently sits, we enjoy a very beneficial relationship with our law enforcement individuals. They're extraordinarily professional. We get very good information when we need it, and they're able to reach out to us and get information at the same time. So it's not a matter of withholding. It is not a matter of stakeholding and estate building and castle building. It's a matter of cooperation. And if we're to provide unbiased, introspective, and objective medical legal death investigation, I think we need to move forward and maintain an independence from law enforcement, being our own department. With that, I know I've just rambled. So Madam Chair, members, I'd entertain any questions.
Mr. Dennehy?
Madam Chair, Jason, how big is your department? How many assistants do you have and those sorts of things?
Currently, we have pardon me, Madam Chair, Dan Dennehy, members of the commission. We have myself and 4 active deputies. We have one who's currently out, and we're looking to, on maternity leave. We are able to split up the time periods very well. I'm Monday through Friday, 24/7 until about 17:30 on Friday, when one of my deputies will take over for the weekend, and then they're on until 17:30 on Sunday, in which case we turn back over. There's also availability in the week if I need their assistance, or if on the weekend they need anything from me, they can always call me. So we work very closely together. We are always scheduling additional trainings, sharing information, making sure resources are available. All of our deputies and myself are current on our basic training and also on the latest batch of advanced training from the Department of Justice.
Thanks, Jason.
You're welcome.
Ms. McCormick, and then I'll take you, Mr. Thielen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Jason, for being here tonight. My understanding is the civilian coroner is elected, correct? And so, my concern is you have great qualifications, but people can run for that office that don't have qualifications and be elected. Do you have any solutions to address that?
Madam Chair, Ms. McCormick, this is one of those occasions where you have to trust your electorate. And unfortunately, that also involves public communication, the ability to present one's experience and one's integrity, and present it in such a way that is understandable, reachable, and approachable. So you have to trust the voters to make the decision for experience and integrity versus popularity.
Mr. Thielen?
Madam Chair, thank you. Jason, just because I don't know, how long have you been working with Mr. Hollis?
Madam Chair, Mr. Thielen, I've been with Mr. Hollis since May. I have approximately 12 years of experience in EMS and paramedic and mortuary affairs otherwise.
Okay. That follow-up. So back to the election thing, would you see it being better as running for election or being appointed?
Madam Chair, Mr. Thielen, you run a risk here between the right person for the job versus the wrong person, and you're going to get it either which way. The advantage of election is you let the people speak. The disadvantage of by nomination or by having somebody just placed in the position is it can run into the old boy society, which Butte-Silver has been accused of, not necessarily always fairly. So running it through election allows you to have fair and impartial, in theory, elections.
Ms. Shaw?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Jason, for being here. So he was appointed, and this is a very unusual situation because Jason was appointed to fulfill the remainder of the term, and then he can offer to, I would hope, to run for the job. But we have a unique situation because, Jason, you do have a lot of great experience. I've known you for a long time, and your background is I think, a perfect fit. Ordinarily, like Mary said, it's a crapshoot in a way. You know, when you have elected officials, you don't know. You could run and win, and then 4 years from now, somebody else could run, and, you know, like you say, popularity contest or whatever.
Right.
But I think that at this point in time, is there 2 more years of the term that you're fulfilling, I believe? Or you're,
Madam Chair, Ms. Shaw, 1 year. I will have to run beginning in February when we.
okay, 1 year. So I'm just thinking ahead, 1 year, and then if you did run, and I'd vote for you because I think you do have the qualifications, just saying. And that would be a big plus for a person like yourself to run and get it for another 4 years. I'm not sure at this point, as it still is kind of a roll of the dice, if we'd want to just wait to see how that works out, because it'd be hard pressed to find a better candidate, in my opinion, at this point, just because and from what you've told us. Yeah, so I'm just saying that just to throw it out there, that if we make a decision to do something, I don't know if we would want to do it now or wait on it. So.
Madam Chair, may I? Ms. Shaw, one of the statutes that I'm or not statutes, but ideals I'm trying to press forward as the appointed official in the position is the establishment of a fully working standard operating procedures manual and accreditation for the entire department through the International Association of Coroners and Medical Examiners. Getting that in place and maintaining that accreditation will assist if we have an election where somebody who does not have the experience is elected. If they were to maintain the deputy lineup who is in place currently and have the knowledge of the standard operating procedures and the working relationship with accreditation, they would be able to take that elected coroner under their wings and essentially instruct them in the appropriate way that the county works until they decide to make their own changes. I should remind everybody that the sheriff's position does not necessarily require law enforcement experience to get in that position either. So,
I'll take Mr. Steppen, and then I'll take you, Ms. Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Parrish. Maybe a comment and then a question. The comment is when we talk about, elected versus appointed, and the idea of the appointed having more technical expertise in those things. There are positions that are elected, like county attorney, that require a certain amount of qualifications, education, so that they can be melded into something different than what it is and not be an appointed position. The question that I had, and it's, you talked about one potential benefit being a budgetary one of the coroner being under the sheriff's department. Were you saying that as opposed to having an additional person, you can appoint somebody that's already on the payroll? Is that the budgetary benefit that you were referring to?
Madam Chair, Mr. Steppen, that would be part of it. One would be the simplification of finance and budget for payroll. I know when we have Silverbow employees who work in other departments and are deputy coroners, Joe Dell in payroll wants to strangle me in the nicest way possible. But having access to a larger budgetary portion is always a need for any department, most especially of ours. We operate on a very razor-thin budget, and we still have to maintain the costs of indigent burials for those who are not claimed or whose families do not have sufficient funds to properly take care of their loved ones who've been deceased. So in that, there's always going to be a budgetary need. Whether or not that would be repaired under law enforcement, that's a whole different story. That would come under finance and budget to answer those questions. I would like to imagine a perfect world where I put in a nice budget request and the council of commissioners gladly rubber stamp it and say, you betcha how much you want. However, we know that doesn't work that way. But in the same line, law enforcement has their own issues too when it comes to their budgets. Every department does. We try to maintain the tax line for the citizens of this county at an affordable rate. We would like to reach for the sky, but let's keep it affordable for the citizens.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick follow-up?
You have follow-up, and then I'll
Sorry.
take Ms. Dolan.
Okay. If I don't want to speak for Sheriff Lester, but my recollection of this conversation with him is that while it could be a cost savings to have it under the department, they're already expressed concerns over their personnel that short-staffed and taking on an additional department within their department, if I remember right, was a concern of Sheriff Lester.
I agree. Ms. Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Jason, for being here. And I've learned a lot tonight, and I appreciate the fact that you gave us your resume and your backstory, because that helps a lot. I think a lot of people, I've met you tonight for the first time, and I'm really excited about your background and what you bring to the table for Butte, so thank you. I just have two questions, and it actually questions following up from other questions to you earlier. So the first one is with regard to the chain of custody issues in the coroner today, because the reason we're even talking about this is not only the study commission we've been brought to, this is the 10-year mark, and we were asked to do this, and that's going to be my second question, but because of what transpired, and it was, you were not coroner, but Butte-Silver Bow is currently in litigation over failures of the department. And what I want to get to is, as a coroner today, and you go to a scene, tell me the process with securing, and you mentioned it earlier, securing the chain of custody of especially high-potency drugs, personal property. What does that look like? And if you can explain to us and to the folks listening tonight what that looks like and what that process and procedure when you get onto a scene.
Certainly. Madam Chair, Ms. Dolan. Chain of custody, as we process a scene, including the body, including all the drugs. Let's say we obtain amounts of narcotics on the person, or in the near proximity thereof, or within the house. Those are bagged into evidence bags with an officer present. So everything is done with a second set of eyes. Same thing with any personal property, wallets, keys, anything of the sort that could be attached to monetary or fiduciary value. They are packaged into evidence bags, sealed and initialed. We maintain signatory evidence and case numbers on those bags. Those are transferred either to the coroner's department as personal property if it's not a criminal investigation, or if it is an criminal investigation or it's a narcotic, it will go to the law enforcement department. And those items are put into the evidence processing area for law enforcement. In our side, we have a very large locking vault where they are cataloged, inventoried into what's called MDI. It's Medical Death Investigator's Log, which is an electronic log format. We will go through the property. We'll ascertain what exactly we brought from that scene as we go through it, maintaining that log within MDI until such time as it is either released to the family or is called for as a part of law enforcement or legal necessity. As far as decedents, as we see the necessity to package the decedent, that body bag is sealed with a locking plastic ID'd tag, which has a number. We take photographs of all of that to make absolutely certain that it is not tampered with from the moment they're in there until they get to the crime lab or to a funeral home, depending on the procedure. And at that point in time, if there has to be a change, everything is 100% documented, either an MDI log and or photographically.
Thank you.
So.
Oops, sorry, I had my mic on. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just two quick follow-ups. So does the coroners have an office?
We do now, yes, ma'am.
Where is it?
It is 600 Gilman Avenue. It is in the old National Guard Armory.
Okay, perfect.
It is now the Don Peoples Complex, Building B, Room 139.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say, it's the new Don Peoples Complex. That was great. So my final question to you is, and you started to address it with Commissioner McCormick and Shaw's questions to you, but I want to drill down on this because I wanted your opinion. And I know, and I'm grateful that you've been appointed and then moving forward, but I don't want to write off the question with regard to qualifications, because yes, and I'm glad you made the point tonight that I think we need to look at the major, and it's not, the major jobs in Butte-Silver Bow that need some qualifications. And so to your point, coroner, sheriff, the idea that the county attorney needs to have a law degree is paramount. So I would ask you, as far as a coroner, in your experience, beyond being old enough and living in Butte-Silver Bow proper, or in Butte-Silver Bow County, beyond that, what do you think are the best qualifications for someone, if it stays autonomous and it is an elected position moving forward, what can we put in our charter in Butte-Silver Bow to make sure we get someone like you who has that background of skills and a skill set that is good for a coroner? What would you suggest?
Madam Chair, members of the council, Ms. Dolan, that is a wonderful question. And this is something that I've been looking at as we move forward. As we know, of course, Montana Code Annotated gives us minimums for the state. It doesn't give us preferences, and we can always adjudicate for a higher standard. I would like to see, at a minimum, either a 4-year degree and or EMT certification or paramedic certification with experience in the field as being minimal. Whether or not that is currently in application, I believe all of my deputies have at least a 4-year degree. And I know that would be essential for most positions of this sort. I think that would give, and by 4-year degree, computer science may not be the best degree for the position, but something in an appropriate health-related field. Let's remember that part of our job is public health and human services related. That's what the death certificates that we certify are for, is for public health. Therefore, a degree within biology, anatomy, physiology, pre-medicine, anything of that sort, or public health administration, I believe would be sufficient. Or a 2-year degree with EMT certification, at least EMTB, I think would be an ideal position to start. That being said, I think there should be some leeway for alternate experience. We might take a police officer on if they're nice.
Thank you, Mr. Parrish.
welcome.
Committee, I want to move us along. It is getting to be 7 o'clock and we have more items to finish. And I think that I appreciate your time. I appreciate both you and Mr. Haggerty coming and giving us the this background experience, this background and information that will help us in our deliberations. And Commission, I also have a document for you that is from the CDC that talks about, it's a map basically of the type of medical legal death investigation systems that are across the United States. And then you look at Montana and we have this kind of mishmash of a mix of coroners and other elected officials or other county officials that are doing that work, so that can help inform. I think this mood is that we might want to also work group this idea or this issue as far as putting it into, leaving it as is in the charter or making changes to the charter. So I'd open up that conversation. Ms. Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that's an excellent idea. I don't think it's going to be the lift that the fire department is going to be. I think going to a working group setting to go through what's current and all the information we gathered tonight from Mr. Haggerty and Mr. Parrish. Thank you again. It was so informative and educational, and I hope the public feels the same way. But yeah, I totally agree. I think that it would be a good opportunity to kind of gel all that information and bring something back to the commission for discussion.
Are you volunteering? Okay, so
Yes,
I
I will.
Ms. Dolan, Mr. Steppen.
I have a question. I'm happy to work on the working group.
Okay, question.
And maybe this is a question for County Attorney and Ruth. The question of, if we were to pose the question to the public on whether or not to keep it as an elected position or for it to be an appointed position, is that considered a form of government? Question.
Chairman Steppen, I don't think so. And I actually made a note of that tonight. If the fireman question, that question, and yeah, fireman and coroner's questions are part of the big three. And so I will send off, I know who I need to email to get that answer. I am genuinely thinking myself, those are not forms of government questions. Those are just charter questions, charter changes. And so I don't think that counts as the big three, but I will get an answer on that. I already made a note of it.
You're thinking with my brain, thank you. And you volunteered, I heard. Mr. Thielen, you'd like to? Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So we'll go with the three of you with that. And like I said, I will send you that background information that I have from the CDC for you to review, just as information in terms of how things are done across the state of Montana compared to the rest of the United States, which is interesting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just so you both know in the audience, Mr. Haggerty and Mr. Parrish, with our working group, we may reach out to ask you some additional questions, but hopefully we can just do that via email or a call and then bring it back to the working group. So again, thank you for your time tonight.
Thanks very much. Moving on to our Superfund coordinator, Ms. Dolan, I know you have a commission communication. And then we do have Mr. Hassler in the audience if we have questions for him.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I was talking with the chair earlier tonight, and I had a nice discussion with Fritz Daly, and he was the one who put forth this question about having a Superfund coordinator position. And so while Fritz is not here tonight, he did send me a letter. I know he'll indulge me and understand that I'm not going to read the entire letter into the record tonight. I will read, though, a couple things from the letter. I will forward the entire letter on to the commission and some attachments that Mr. Daly has provided with regard to the Superfund coordinator position. I will say, before I read this into the record, what we discussed was our mission and what is in our purview in the study commission, and we talked about the two buckets, the one for the ballot issues for the general public and the bucket of recommendations for the county commission. And so in our discussion today, and after Mr. Daly had a chance to ruminate on it and figure out the best course of action. He felt that it would probably be the best to go to the second bucket and discuss the Superfund coordinator position as a potential to put on a potential list of recommendations to our Council of Commissioners. He thought that was a great way to go, so I just wanted to clarify that for everyone's here tonight. From Mr. Daly, he said he's a former 7-term commissioner, legislator, lifelong Butte resident who has been actively involved in Butte Superfund issues for well over 40 years. And he says the following: I believe the cleanup and restoration of Silverbow Creek, the last first mile through Butte, the Butte Hill, the Montana Pole site, and the cleanup and restoration of the Berkeley Pit and establishing responsible lead and arsenic soil removal action levels are the most important issues facing the economic, environmental, and social future of this great community. Butte, Montana is without question one of the most important cities in shaping and creating this great nation. Ore mined in the Butte Hill was used to create the electrical and communication systems throughout the U.S., and more importantly, it was used to build the material necessary to defend this country during times of war. We have paid our dues. If it were not for Butte and Anaconda, Montana, we may be having this discussion in Japanese or German. What Butte absolutely needs now is a thorough evaluation of all Superfund decisions made to date by a reputable legal environmental firm, including all consent decrees, agreement in principle, allocation agreement, Butte-Silverbow Creek Headwaters Coalition lawsuit, and any other documents associated with the consent decree. And again, I will send this to all commissioners and to Shanna so she can put this on the record, and so it's if folks want to research that, they'll have that information about Mr. Daly's efforts to have a Superfund coordinator. Thank you.
Questions? Do we have a question? Mr. Enruth?
I don't have any questions, but if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure we already have a Superfund coordinator, or at least someone that does the job. I believe Director Hassler's here, if we have any questions for him. I mean, I know the only reason I know that's because I deal with Superfund stuff with him all the time, so.
Yeah.
Ms. Dolan, is Mr. Daly asking for a Superfund coordinator who's a lawyer? Is that the request?
I think the impetus for the question and for the study commission is not so much qualifications, attorney of that nature. It's more so having an independent Superfund coordinator that is not involved with local government. And I think that's the impetus for this. And again, it's something we need to work group through and figure out where Do you have a question, Ms. McCormick? Okay, thank you. So that's the impetus. What? Oh, no, that's fine. So yeah, that was the impetus for his initial, back in January, of having this question to the commission, or February, I forget when he sent the initial email.
Ms. McCormick?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I do apologize, Commissioner Dolan, but I do wonder why this group would be considering a position that is not a part of the local government. I mean, we have no authority to recommend somebody have a Superfund coordinator that is outside the purview of the local government. How can we do that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mary, let me get back and figure that out. That's a great question. That's absolutely a great question. So I'll reach back out to Mr. Daly and follow up.
I guess my comment would be, I'm trying to understand what problem we're trying to solve. If it is that we need, an environmental lawyer that's part of the team that can help us with looking at the consent decree and the legal decisions and the agreements that we've made with ARCO, do we already have that position, Mr. Enruth?
We have it in the past. The individual's now gone, and again, Director Hassler and I have now tracked down the other 2 individuals in the country that are extremely qualified to do this, and we are already doing that. That's why I was just confused on the request is, I understand Commissioner Purdue-Dolan's, I understand it now. Now I get what you're saying. But I was just saying we have an in-house Superfund person. We kind of have a semi-in-house Superfund attorney. Aaron Rains has an undergrad degree that complements working on that type of stuff. He sits in on the vast majority of the meetings. I sit in with him because my undergrad degree also complements it. We understand the process. But we've also, are in the process of sending out another RFP for a new attorney to help with the rest of that, the Superfund stuff. There was a local one here in town which we were hoping to use. However, he has a conflict.
And then Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am kind of flummoxed here. Look that word up. I don't even know what it means. With Mary, I agree that we're the Local Government Study Commission, and I think we had a boatload of things to do as far as subcommittees and our teamwork that we're trying to get things done. To add something in that I don't believe is within our purview, I find troubling. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
I think there is a question of jurisdiction too, like back to the comment, how do we recommend something that's outside of what we're doing, which is the charter. And we have Director Hassler, and you're not named as a director, correct? I'm sorry, Mr. Hassler, can you come up? Let me yell across the room to you. So if I recall, when we were interviewing our county employees, one of the things that was a concern is that you're not necessarily named in the charter. Do I have that correct? I can't remember the whole conversation.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, the charter is a little outdated. I believe it is brought up that the county would have a Superfund coordinator, but we have since moved from the coordinator type format. Previously, Superfund was housed within a couple different departments. You had aspects in the health department, you had aspects in the planning. Now Superfund is a standalone department with a director, which I was appointed to in 2020 to be the director of this new department known as the Department of Reclamation and Environmental Services. So Superfund coordinator in the county charter, probably antiquated, needs to be updated to meet the format that we work under today.
Thank you. Mr. Thielen.
Madam Chair, Eric, so your recommendation would be to just change the charter to include that then? Do away from the Superfund director, make it a standalone department, and have you as the director, correct?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Thielen, I'm not sure if I'd use it as a recommendation, but I think it might be valuable for it to be memorialized for the betterment of the community and have a department that's involved with Superfund going forward so that we have a seat at the table, if you will, on making decisions in regard to the cleanup going forward, where without it being in the charter at this point and housed in other departments, I don't know how you would guarantee the existence of such a department or memorialize it.
Mr. Dennehy.
Madam Chair, I think that having Eric there for a number of years is important to a local government. I don't think this is in the purview of a local government study commission. If it is, or if changes needs to be happen, it will go to the city manager or the council of commissioners. I'm very happy to have Matt involved in this, as all other county attorneys were when I was there, and also another person looking for an RFP for having that certain requirement of environmental law, which is very hard. We had one. We appointed or had a contract with an individual when I was there. I don't know how cost effective that was. We spent a lot of money on that individual, and he was worth it, but you get what you paid for, and I'm just happy that Matt and his associate and Eric and having the RFP going out for environmental law is important. So, again, I'm with my colleagues on this side of the dais that if this is something that the council commissioners want to move forward on, and it'll be their decision, not ours.
So group, I guess I would entertain some direction of where we want to go. Do we want to wrestle with the issue about changing language in the charter? Do we want to leave this issue behind and let it sit as is? Do we want to put it in a recommendation bucket? Or, you know, I guess we're going to hear from public a lot too on this. So do we want to form a work group on this one, or how do we want to proceed? Ms. Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I don't want to put the cart before the horse, and I appreciate the fact that we do want a work group. We understand the necessity of a work group, but I think it's incumbent upon me to reach back out to Mr. Daly and get some clarification with regard to this position and what his intent was, and within the scope of local government, because I agree that if it's not in our scope, then we need to punt it to the Council of Commissioners. But that said, we need to make that determination first, and then I think there is such great value in the idea of a small working group to go through these issues with input from Mr. Hassler as well, to figure out if there's some language we can put into the charter, because we're going to have to wait another 10 years at least to do it again. So I think some clarification, and then I can email the group and let you know what some more specifics, and then make that determination maybe next week. I don't know if that's feasible.
Thank you, Ms. Dolan. I have a question for you, Mr. and Ruth. And this kind of goes back to our discussion about Parks and Rec, where there was a request to have a director named in the charter for Parks and Rec instead of having that internal to Public Works. How important is it to have directors named in the charter, or in your opinion, is it important at all, or is that something that the commissioners can make up directors as they choose? How do you see that going out?
Honestly, I mean, if it's in, Madam Chair, Commission, honestly, if it's in the charter, I mean, it creates a good pathway forward of, you know, we have directors of these departments. The directors are the head of the departments, and they run them. And that's kind of the issue that you're having with Parks and Rec, is he's not labeled, you know, a director in that sense. And so putting that in the charter and correcting that works, but you can also correct that via ordinance if it's completely removed from the charter. But I definitely think, you know, having the charter give the power to the commission, you know, to create departments as needed and put directors in charge of those departments, you know, it's good. It provides a clear pathway. So, yes, I mean, I think it's good to have it in the charter. Is it absolutely required? No, I think you can do the same thing via ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Ms. McCormick?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Eric. Can you tell me, do you think the way your department is organized and operates now is what we need?
Madam Chair, Commissioner McCormick, sorry. I think it fits the current state of Superfund. I think the department is going to have to be somewhat organic as Superfund progresses through our community and meet the needs as further remedy are implemented. So I know that doesn't really answer your question, but I do feel that it needs to be organic as more remedy comes online, as we learn new things, as more operable units are developed and things of that nature. So form and function wise, yes, but size may need to differ in the future.
Ms. McCormick?
Thank you. Follow up. So just sort of like your basic organization of what you are now, that you're the director, that there's a director. Would that be would that be a good change to make to the charter?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Morgan, Commissioner
McCormick?
McCormick. Sorry, I've got the other one and spent a little time there too.
No, I look a lot like him, but.
Yes, I do feel that it would be. But on the topic of outside resources, outside counsel, I think that is a necessity as well. I mean, there are going to be some legal circumstances and some liabilities associated with this that we may want some outside resources to supplement the department, supplement the county attorney's office, make sure we're going in the right direction with all of this going forward. This is an important topic for our community in the forever. So, but day-to-day operations, implementing remedy, keeping the place operating underneath operations and maintenance the way it's supposed to, yes, I think the department is a good fit and is set up well for that, but there are going to be times when outside resources will be necessary.
Mr. Steppen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Hassler. So that I'm clear, when you talked about recommended changes to better memorialize the position or the department in the charter, were you saying that there's a concern that under the way that it's noted in the charter now, a future administration may not see value in it and won't have to keep it?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Steppen, I think it's the same issue that you were looking at with the Parks and Rec director scenario. Is, to be blunt, when we were under other departments, it became secondary, not necessarily the health department, Mr. Dennehy, but under others. And I mean, there was at times where we were looking at maybe it's a fit for public works. We tried that, but the municipalities' needs started to come before Superfund. So I think the memorialization of the department, not a position, but a department in general that is specific to Superfund activities in our community is vital going forward.
And just
Go ahead.
I don't know if this is a question or not, but this, if I remember, is the third department that we've talked about, or at least it's been brought to us, the need to discuss changing a title within the charter. This one to director, I believe the Civic Center asked for a similar for director, and Parks and Rec, and I think it was focused on the duties that they're performing and the difference between a coordinator and a director. And so maybe that's where the starting point needs to be for this position as well.
I think that's an excellent suggestion to loop those three departments together as a discussion for the study or for a work group. Mr. Lynn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm glad you asked that question, Matt, because we've got Parks and Rec, we've got Civic Center, Superfund director, and then we also have the animal shelter that's now autonomous, but the animal shelter director is just a manager. But again, I will add the caveat that if you add up these changes to directorship from management, from manager to director means a pay bump. And that's just fact. So another budgetary consequence of what we're discussing. But I think it's a very valid discussion to have with all of these different things with the charter and to figure out how we, again, set up for success the next 10 years and making sure that there's value in the folks that are leading those efforts. Thank you.
So I'd like to kind of wrap this. Ms. Shaw, sorry.
Thank you, and I'll make this quick. You can wrap it up. Thank you, Eric, for being here. I'm just saying, you don't know how much this gentleman works. It's amazing. And I just want to say that 20 years ago, I was on the study commission in 04, 06, and that's when we put in the only reference to Superfund. And it says, the powers and duties of the chief executive are to interface, or excuse me, be accountable for coordinating all Superfund activities, monitoring the funds, and shall interface with Volunteer Citizens Advisory Board, which I think doesn't even exist anymore. This is 20 years ago, and it was before our consent decree. A lot has gone, across the bridge or under the bridge since then. And then what you're doing with the in perpetuity of all the things that the Superfund is going to be doing forever, honestly. I can't say more emphatically that we have to put something in this charter with the Superfund. It needs to have a coordinator or a director. It needs to be mentioned that there is a head of that, and it should be standalone. I can say it's under the chief executive as a administrative thing, but there's just so much more to it. It's just huge, and I think what's in here is just certainly not appropriate anymore. So that's what I had to say. Thanks. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Ms. Shaw. You summarized for me pretty much. I agree that with a perpetuity label, which means forever or 30 years, whichever comes first. I think we should have, something that's stated in the charter to put everything into a form and function. So I would volunteer myself to start heading up a department's working group, and maybe we can come back to it given I think it's okay that we can get Fritz's input, but we can form that department's working group and take on the 4 that we had mentioned: Superfund, Animal Shelter, Parks and Rec, and Civic Center. And it may be that one of them goes forward, but not all of them, or the working group's going to have to make decisions. But given Superfund's importance in our community, my personal opinion is that it needs to be called out in the charter. Especially, I get concerned that those of us with institutional knowledge are leaving the roles. And so the charter, like you said, memorializes some of those roles and the importance of them. So I think it can be important work that we do. So is there another person that will work with me on this? Okay. Ms. Shaw, thank you. Anybody else? We're getting tired. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we're muddying the waters here, having another working group. I think we need to figure out, first and foremost, the clarification from Mr. Daly, and then within the auspices of the working group that was established a little bit ago in this meeting, myself, Mr. Steppen, and Mr. Thielen, to then figure out, I guess if you want to do another working group talking about titles, that's fine, but as far as Superfund goes, I think we need to take a step back, make those clarifications, and then move forward. And so not, I guess I'm not clear on what you're trying to do with that.
Yeah, I just disagree. I think that there were 4 questions of people having a title change or being called out in the charter. I'm not sure that all 4 need to be called out in the charter. Maybe one does. And I think that what Mr. Daly's asking for could just inform the group, in terms of, are you looking for an independent of us, which we can't do, or are you looking for a charter change that is within the county government? Mr. Steppen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think maybe part of the confusion is the working group that you're referencing with us 3 was for coroner. We didn't establish a Superfund working group. Yeah, so that probably is where it appeared there was muddying in the water, but no, we had not established a Superfund working group.
Thank you. Mr. Dennehy?
Madam Chair, in the current charter, there is Article 7, administrative departments that go, that has Public Works Department, memorialized, Fire Department, Land Record System, Finance and Budget System, Human Resources Department, Animal Services Department. So in that section, you can probably add to what, Eric, your department is. And some are established by ordinance. And there shall be established by ordinance to maintain an animal service department for the purpose of enforcing animal control ordinances and confirming and confining nuisance animals. That's not to you, Eric, but I mean, it could be something to, there shall be a whatever, what is the department again? I'm sorry.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dennehy, it's the Department of Reclamation and Environmental Services.
Right. So, you can establish that by ordinance too. So there is a placeholder in the current charter that if you want to establish other departments, that can be done in section 7.06 of the charter, very, minimally. And if you want to make it more pertinent and with a little bit more teeth, you can also put it in an ordinance form of what that should be. Just some food for thought.
Ms. Shaw?
And just attaching to what Dan just said, that's by ordinance means it goes through the Council of Commissioners. It would have to go through the legislative branch, so that would, in order for it to even be put in the charter, I believe it would have to go through the Council of Commissioners. But, I mean, it says it shall be established, so I guess you could have it in there and then they have to do it after that. But it wouldn't have anything to do with us, other than just putting it in the charter.
Okay, more discussion on this departments. So it looks like you and I, Ms. Shaw, to look at those. And we can look at that section and coordinate with Mr. Enruth. And it might be that we're just out of bandwidth, that we'd have too many questions for the ballots, because we talked about trying to keep things important. We have the 3 questions that are the change of government sections, and then we were talking about maybe 5 cleanup questions. So that will be part of the discussion, I think, as well. All right, thank you, Mr. Hassler.
Thank you for having.
Mm-hmm. Any other discussion on that issue? And thank you for clarifying. I appreciate that. We don't have a public hearing tonight. Any other scheduled matters? I don't think so. Our announcements, we changed our schedule completely. No, just kidding. So our schedule, our next weekly meeting will be on December 15th. And then in the meantime, the work groups will do their work. Could I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Thielen's making the motion. Is there a second? Ms. Shaw seconds. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, let's go home. Thanks all.